So when you try to introduce champions like Riven, Yasuo and Katarina into the game, you're essentially trying to put in a character that doesn't play by some of the original rules of the game, specifically resource and cooldown management. These are restrictions to the player. This means that you have to introduce other restrictions to these champions in order to limit their power. However, Riot doesn't seem to do this with any of the mentioned champions. Having low cooldowns means there is less pressure to hit your abilities, and since you will be able to try again very soon, having no resource on top of that doubles down on the problem. So you just have to introduce something else that will put this in control, and there is none of it in League. Mentioned champions are considered monsters when mastered. However, in my fucking opinion, of course, these champions make it easy for you to go ahead and master them, because in truth they do not present any new challenges to the player. They just remove some of them, and it comes down to who can abuse them more effectively. This is the reason why one-trick players of these champions have problems when trying to play anything else. It is not a rare sight to see a Riven main with really poor game knowledge be highly ranked, and this is because they just skipped a lot of the learning that game requires, because the champion they picked allows them to do so. For example, there is a Reddit post asking Riven mains which champion to pick if Riven is banned, and the top comment is just a dodge. So when you turn this to Yasuo, this champion is in some sense even worse than Riven, because he can still be helpful to the team even if he doesn't land a single strike. His W can completely negate AD carries, or in that matter any projectile based damage for 4 seconds, and his ultimate can extend any airborne effect just by hitting the button. I found a good post on League fandom about this. So the dude said that everyone here talks about his stats, his crit, his dashes, his everything, but all I see is that the biggest reason why Yasuo is considered incredibly strong is not because of that, but because of his W. Look, his crit is bullshit, his infinite dashes are bullshit, his armor pen is bullshit, he does too much damage, and he has a refillable shield. Then people will say, but he has a wind wall too. No, wind wall is not a skill that can be described as 2. It is the sole reason why this fucking champion is the most cancerous thing in the world. Braum has a balanced version of the thing, and he is considered to be a good, reliable, strong support. People would say, yeah, Braum has it, so it's okay if Yasuo has it. It's just Yasuo's damage. It's because Braum's a tank, he doesn't do that damage. And while I don't think that Yasuo's wall should be completely removed, I think that it should be turned into something like Fiora's W, a reaction ability which rewards your reflexes. This would make a huge gap between players that are good at Yasuo and those that are not. Keep in mind, these are all the problems on top of the fact that he still doesn't have to manage resources, he still doesn't have to manage his very low cooldowns, except arguably for his W, but I would argue that it's still too low for the impact that it has. I heard arguments like he has to manage his Q, which is just dumb. If you think that's a hard mechanic to grasp, like, I'm sorry, it's just not. Also arguments like, if he gets CC'd, he's dead. You mean like any other champion that is not a tank, alright? Point is, if you remove restrictions from a certain champion's playstyle, you have to introduce new ones. And while I get that playing without restrictions is fun, which is why Earth is so popular, the game should be fun for everyone, not just the people that picked the right champion. Having low cooldowns, having no resource to manage, and having no other mechanics that limit you does not make the game harder for you. It makes it easier, and this means that a bad player can get much farther by abusing some of these champions just because they remove some of the restrictions that the player cannot deal with. And this is the problem that I have. They do have high skill ceilings. When mastered, they do offer a lot of the things that other champions do not, and I have no problems with certain champions being able to do ridiculous shit if that requires a lot of skill and engagement for the player. I have a problem when you can be effective as a high skill cap champion just because you ignore some of the basic restrictions of the game. That's something I'm not okay with. I think that these champions should be reworked in a manner that emphasizes skill and discourages the abuse of the lack of the mechanics. That is it.
You have to adapt and overcome the fact that, like,
you have no resources and low cooldowns, and that means game is harder to play.